But how about the HSI, Horizontal Situation Indicator, that combines course guidance with heading display. So you still select a course like an OBS, but the compass card shows your actual heading at the same time, and you can use a heading bug too. So it's much easier to see the relationship between your heading and the selected course, especially in wind. Okay, the bottom instrument is HSI. The top is VOR. I selected the same radio from the VOR. The OBS and CDI show me the left deflected information. So if I'm not familiar with this one, or and there is a mistake that I can make the wrong heading and fly wrong direction. However, in HSI, the heading information is added to this information. So visually, I can see where the city is located and where the radio is located. So there in the middle, there is miniature airplane, and there is a radio arrow, and the CDI is in front of me and to the right bound. So if I turn my heading to 120 and fly with this heading, means that I can intercept and track or run perpendicularly. Another example, inbound and outbound tracking. On the left side, we have a 2 indication, meaning we are flying toward the station. In this example, the aircraft heading is 180 and the desired course to the station is 180. But notice the aircraft is slightly off course. To intercept, we apply an intercept angle, for example 30 to 45 degrees toward the course. Let's look at the right side, the from indication or outbound tracking. We are flying away from the station on the 180 radio. Again, the aircraft is off course, so we apply an intercept angle to rejoin the selected radio. The important point is inbound tracking means you are flying a course toward the station with a 2 indication. Outbound tracking means you are flying a radial away from the station with a from indication. So some instructor will tell you that to correct this off course, turn toward the needle, and I recommend you check the azimuth of the needle located. So I will turn heading about 210 or 240, and this I'm gonna turn toward the 150 or 120 depending on the type of you're flying or the distance from the VOR because of the sensitivity, or how sooner you have to intercept the radio. Select your intercept angle. VOR service volume. Not all VORs provide the same usable range. They are classified as terminal, low altitude, and high altitude. A terminal VOR provides service from 1,000 feet AGL up to 12,000 feet AGL within 25 nautical miles. A low altitude VOR provides service from 1,000 feet AGL up to 18,000 feet MSL within 40 nautical miles. A high altitude VOR provides varying ranges depending on altitude. Up to 40 nautical mile below 14,500 feet, up to 100 nautical mile between 14,500 feet and 18,000 feet, and up to 130 nautical mile between 18,000 and 45,000 feet, and back to 100 nautical mile up to 60,000 feet. Let's connect this to the 60 to 1 rule. The rule states that 1 degree of course deviation equals 1 nautical mile off course at 60 nautical miles. So in your indicator, the full deflection means 10 degrees. And if I deflected like 1 degree at 60 nautical mile from the station, means that 1 nautical mile off course from the radio. Let's review common VOR errors. First, line of sight limitation. VOR operates in the VHF band, which means it requires line of sight. Mountains, terrain, and even large structures can block the signal. Second, the cone of confusion. As you approach directly over the station, the CDI may fluctuate rapidly and become unreliable. This happened because the signal geometry becomes unstable near the antenna. With about 1 mile of the station, it's best to maintain a constant heading and wait for the indication to stabilize. So this is the example of cone of confusion. You are flying to the VOR 1 and when you fly over the VOR, make the flag like this, and which means that it is unreliable. So within about 1 mile of the station, it's best to maintain a constant heading and wait for the indication to be stabilized. Maintain current heading and stabilize, and then correct the angle. The next, the zone of ambiguity. If you select a course that is approximately 90 degrees from your actual position relative to the station, the receiver may not clearly determine to or from. This can create confusing indication. Related to that is the off flag, like this. When you pass directly over the station, the to from indication disappears temporarily. That's normal and expected. Prop modulation. Certain propeller RPM setting can create electrical interference with the VOR signal. It would be around 1800 RPM. Because at first we learned that the VOR sends out the signal and rotate 30 times per second. If we make this to minute, multiply 60 and 1800 rotation per minute. So because of this interference, at around 1800 RPM make prop modulation. So the simple way to correct is adjust your RPM slightly. The reverse sensing. The reverse sensing occurs when a pilot selects the wrong course. So when you turn heading, if you selected the wrong radio, then the farther you will fly from the radio you set. VOR testing requirements. For IFR operation, you must verify VOR accuracy within the preceding 30 days and log the result. Let's start with the ground check. If you use a VOT, VOR test facility, tune and identify the station. Set the OBS to 360 and you should see from indication center, or set 180 degrees and see a 2 indication center. The easy way to remember is Cessna 182. Set the 180 radio and make 2 indication. So set the OBS to 180 and 2 indication. The allowable error is plus minus 4 degrees. For a certified ground check, you text to the published location and center the needle with the from indication. The allowable error is also plus minus 4 degrees. And airborne check. If your aircraft has dual VOR receivers, tune both to the same station and compare indications. The difference between them must not exceed 4 degrees, and it is the easiest way. Certified airborne checkpoint. The allowable error is plus minus 6 degrees, and for an airway or prominent landmark check, the tolerance is plus minus 6 degrees. When you log, date, location, bearing error, and your signature must be together. And look at how VOR test facilities and checkpoints are listed in the chart supplement. If you open the chart supplement for your start, you will find a selection labeled VOR receiver, checkpoint, and VOT facility. This section tells you the airport or facility name, the radial and DME distance, frequency, and whether it's a ground or airborne, the type check, and specific instruction on how to perform the check. For example, a ground checkpoint might instruct you to park near a specific taxiway intersection and tune a certain VOR frequency. And it will list the radial you should see and whether it should indicate from. An airborne checkpoint will provide a radial and DMA distance at a specific altitude. An airborne checkpoint will provide, this is important because when you log your VOR check, you must reference the correct published checkpoint.